When you think about Appalachian cryptids, you probably think about the Mothman or the Wampus Cat or my girlfriend, the Flatwoods Monster. But it's said that in the hills of central West Virginia lurks the revenant of a great white wolf. A creature that lurks the hills, killing livestock and hunting those that once hunted wolves to extinction. And if you're from West Virginia and that sounds familiar, you probably read about it in Telltale Lilac Bush and other West Virginia ghost tales. And if you're not from Appalachia or West Virginia, the same story is included in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. You know, that book that traumatized all of us that bought it when we were 7 at the Scholastics Book Fair, and we still have nightmares about it to this day? Great book. So today we're going to talk about the White Wolf of French Creek, Appalachia's forgotten cryptid. And if you love tales of the weird and the supernatural, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and as always, thank you for watching. Our story begins in French Creek, West Virginia in the mid-1800s. As more and more people moved into the rugged mountainous area, the wolf population kept getting more and more out of hand. The people who were moving into the area were primarily farmers and herders, and they were bringing their sheep, cattle, and pigs, and the wolves saw this and was like, cool, free buffet. Things would get so far out of hand that some counties would actually put bounties on the wolves. Enter the man of the hour, Bill Williams, aka Butch, aka Hank the Shank, which, okay, those are good nicknames because Bill was a butcher by trade. And hearing about the bounties put on wolves, he saw this as an excellent investment in his future. He quit his job butchering and started hunting wolves full time. He moved out of town, he lived in a wooded area, and for 5 years, all that he did was hunted wolves. On average, killing nearly 500 wolves a year. And with a bounty set at $10 per wolf pelt, Bill had made himself a small fortune. And in those 5 years, the wolf population was absolutely decimated. They were all but extinct. So Bill took his money and retired, and he vowed that he would never hunt or kill wolves again because they were the creatures that made him all of his money and gave him the opportunity to retire. And as Bill would settle into retirement, he would spend his days at the local general store from dawn until dusk, chewing tobacco, whittling, and telling stories from his time as a wolf hunter. He would regale anyone that would listen to him with stories of danger and adventure. And this is just what Bill would do every single day until just one day out of the blue, 2 young men came running in to say that the previous night they had had sheep that were attacked by this giant white wolf. They had even tried shooting at the wolf, but their bullets just passed right through it, and the wolf remained unharmed. And in the weeks and months to come, more and more people would come forward claiming that their livestock had been killed by this great white wolf. And Bill was known for being the greatest wolf hunter in the area, so people were begging him to come out of retirement, but again, he'd made a promise to himself that he would never hurt another wolf. He was old. He was retired. This was a young man's game. Why would he put himself at danger to hunt wolves when his best years were far behind him? That was until one night he returned home. Now, at his little farm that he had a couple cows, a couple pigs, some chickens, but he had this one prized cow that he loved. He came home from the general store one night, and some large predator had killed his favorite cow. And this sent Bill over the edge. He vowed that whatever this creature was that was terrorizing the region, he was going to take it down. He was going to come out of retirement and break his promise to never hurt another wolf to rid the area of whatever this monster was. He built a hunting blind in the woods, he dusted off his rifle, he went into town and bought a young lamb, and then he went home, he drove a stake down in the middle of a field in front of the blind, tied rope to the stake, and tied the rope to the young lamb as a leash. And then he got in the blind, he loaded his rifle, and he waited because he knew eventually this white wolf was going to show up for this lamb. Wolf is back on the menu, boys. This was a tactic he had used hundreds, if not thousands of times before, and it always worked. And then a day went by, no one heard from Bill, and then another, and then another. And after several days, men from the town would go out to Bill's little cabin to check in, see how he was doing, see if he had killed this giant wolf. And what they found was terrifying. They saw the lamb out in a field, completely untouched, completely unhurt. It was just grazing on some grass. They saw the blind that Bill had built out of sticks in the wood line, and as they approached it, they found Bill. Something had snuck up on him and just bit a giant chunk out of his neck. He basically died immediately and just laid there afterwards. Whatever attacked him was so vicious and jumped on him so suddenly, he hadn't even had time to fire his rifle. It was still loaded and by his side. And according to the story, the white wolf was never seen again. Now, some people claim that in French Creek, you can still hear the howling of wolves on moonlit nights, even though West Virginia doesn't have wolves anymore. And reading the story of the white wolf, it's easy to see why that is such a famous ghost story, both locally and from scary stories to tell in the dark. But there's a lot of history and folklore that is intermingled with that story, and that's what we're going to talk about now. First off, yes, at one point wolves roamed the hills of Appalachia. Wolves, panthers. Appalachia used to have way more predators running around in the woods. And some counties did put bounties on wolves. Some of these bounties were being paid as late as the 1870s, so that part of the story is based in fact. And it's heavily believed that the last gray wolf was killed in Webster County in 1897. After that, wolves were basically extinct in West Virginia. The idea of a part ghost, part monster wolf that roams the countryside, that's immune to bullets and other forms of damage, goes way further back than the 1800s. Germans that would settle in western Maryland, and at that point western Virginia, now the eastern panhandle of West Virginia, had stories of the snarly yowl, a large wolf that was able to appear and disappear on a whim and hunted individuals that were caught on roads in between towns at nighttime. There's accounts of the snarly yowl that go back to the 1700s. And the folklore that the snarly yowl is based off of goes back in Germanic and Swiss folklore, even further back than that. We're talking about going back to almost medieval folklore. Also, the story shares a lot of similarities with the German fairy tale, The Wolf and the Man. In this story, a wolf is boasting to a fox about how it's the most dangerous and cunning creature on Earth, and the fox just asks him, well, have you ever fought a man? The wolf says no, he's never even seen a man, so the fox takes him up to a hill overlooking a village. Eventually, they see this old elderly man walking down the road, and the wolf is like, is that a man? And the fox says, no, that used to be a man. Let's wait a little bit longer. Eventually one will come by. A little while goes by, and here goes a young boy, probably 7, 8 years old, walking down the road, and the wolf goes, is that a man? And the fox goes, no, one day that will be a man, but until then, we'll just keep waiting here. Eventually one will come by. A little bit more time passes, and here comes not just any man, but the village's most famous wolf hunter, and the fox goes, all right, man, there you go, that's a man. I'm gonna go hide in my hole. You got this, champ. And what happens next is the wolf gets shot twice with a shotgun and stabbed multiple times before finally realizing I'm outmatched and running away. Now, this story and the story of the white wolf has a lot of similarities. You know, Bill let pride and anger get in his way and blind him into trying to fight this wolf. Whereas with the wolf and the man, the wolf let its arrogance get in the way and it ended up suffering the consequences when it decided to fight a man that had it severely outclassed. And you might be wondering, how did a Germanic fairy tale make its way to the rugged hills of central West Virginia in the 1860s? In 1869, nice, a group of German and Swiss immigrants would move from Brooklyn, New York to the rugged hills of central West Virginia. They were farmers and herders and masons and doctors and cheesemakers, and they brought with them their food and their customs. But most importantly for this story, they brought their folklore with them. And by 1874, Helvetia would have a population of over 308 people. They would take their stories and their folklore from the old world and adapt them to the hills of rural West Virginia. And that's really cool. The fact that you can pretty much draw a straight line from these Swiss and German immigrants to a book that inspired dozens, if not hundreds, of young authors and artists to tell their own stories, that's really cool and really incredible. Oftentimes when I do videos like this, I will get comments from people telling me how, as a historian, it's a waste of time to talk about ghost stories and that I should, be a person of science, that ghost stories are for children and there's no evidence of ghosts or the supernatural and that I'm just wasting my time. But at the end of the day, humans love storytelling, and we've been telling stories for as long as man has walked the surface of the earth. Every story needs a storytelling medium. That could be film or text or song or comic book or video game. Ghost stories and folklore are just stories told through the medium of the spoken voice. Some stories are best told through film, and other stories are best told orally around a campfire. And let's be honest, who doesn't love some good oral storytelling? And that's why folklore matters. It's the purest form of storytelling that humans have been doing for all of human history and will continue doing until the last human is dead. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, let me know down in the comments what other stories, ghost stories, or tales of the supernatural I should talk about in the future. I have to go make fun of some I don't believe in ghosts, I believe in the science, why are you talking about folklore, nerds? So until next time, don't forget to stay wild, stay wonderful. Maybe I'll make a couple of them cry, we can only hope. And I'll talk to you later.